Buenos dias. Good day. My name is Leroy Pacheco, President and CEO of the New Mexico Community Development Loan Fund. We're a nonprofit organization that has been in business for over 30 years. We've made over $112 million of small business loans and created over 12,000 jobs in the last 30 years. I've been working in banking, small business administration, nonprofits for over 50 years. I'm pleased today to bring you a bilingual workbook developed by Dr. Marvin Lozano and his wife, Dr. Michaela Rivera, psychologist. I think you're going to be excited to take a look at a bilingual approach for Latinos throughout the United States and elsewhere. I am pleased to announce today that we have developed a bilingual approach workbook that I believe will be a resource for those of you that own or run family-owned businesses. You will see the importance of culture. You will see the importance of good planning, good organizational charts with roles that are describing exactly what your cousin, your grandmother, your aunt, your father, your mother should be doing in the success of your family-owned businesses. Come and take a ride with us. I think you'll enjoy it. Come and learn about balancing business, family, and culture. I invite you to take a look at this workbook. You will hear also testimonials from successful business owners throughout the United States. They will tell you intimate details about their own family business and the generations that go back in making sure that culture and family is integrated into the operation of a successful business. Again, take a ride with us. I welcome you to take a look at this workbook. I hope it will become another tool in your toolbox for successful business. Gracias.
Hi, I'm Michaela Rivera.
And I'm Marvin Lozano.
I'm a clinical psychologist and have worked with children, youth, families, and individual adults for many years, but I dedicate myself working mainly with Latinos. After years of working in community mental health, early childhood, and Head Start, as well as private practice, I had the opportunity to co-author a book for Latino entrepreneurs on balancing business, family, and culture.
I'm an entrepreneurial consultant. I've worked as a bilingual branch manager for a sizable commercial bank. I've also done a lot of work with chambers of commerce and also with community development lending organizations. All that was integrated with my teaching at community colleges and at four-year institutions. But importantly today, we're excited to bring you this book on balancing business, family, and culture. As Latino authors, we wanted to write a book that's useful not only to U.S. Latino entrepreneurs, but also to those doing business with them. In doing so, we brought together experienced male and female small business owners to share their history. So today we take a practical approach to the components that are important to business owners. And here's some takeaways. There are actually four of them. The first one is that Latino culture is relationship-centered. That means that it's inclusive of friends, of family, customers, clients, and owners. Secondly, respect is the foundation of all relationships. Third part is that you need to treat family members who are in business with you with the same respect as you treat others. And then the last part of this is that communication is key. You need to resolve conflict and maintain good relationships by using good communication.
Our guest today is Edward Lujan. Edward was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico. His father was a teacher who later founded and developed an insurance agency into the largest insurance agency in the country. That was founded in 1926. Edward's mother was also a teacher, and she later became the Santa Fe County clerk. Edward will focus on his own professional development and the roles that family values, traditions, and routines played in how the business was developed. He'll also talk about his commitment to community and giving back to community and teaching in that manner as well. Focusing and valuing on culture, he helped develop the National Hispanic Cultural Center, which is active and existing in Albuquerque today.
Thank you, Edward, for all you've done, and we welcome you today.
So I'll turn it over now to Edward. Edward, can you tell us a little bit about your business background, your history, some of the challenges you faced, and the lessons learned?
First of all, Michaela, you're very accurate. I was born and raised in Santa Fe. I was also a school teacher, taught schooler. I also farmed early on in my life. We had a farm uh, in Moriarty, and then I started teaching school. Uh, I've done a number of things during my life, but let me just tell you some of my philosophy, or where you mentioned my father and my mother, and a lot of the things that have propelled me into doing different things is their guidance, and their philosophy. One of them that I never forgot was that if the good Lord gave you any talents at all, they weren't meant for you. They're meant for using them for the good of your community and the good of your people, and uh, if you get that opportunity, the good of the world. So I've followed that. After I started in the business in 1960. I was teaching school. My father asked me if I wanted to go into the business, and I uh, kind of didn't answer him for a good while. And he asked me again, and I still didn't answer. Then he asked me the third time, and he said, "Why aren't you answering me? If you want to go in, fine." I said, I'm hesitating because I don't know that if whether I would like it or not. And if I don't like it, I just could not tell you that I don't like what you're doing. Therefore, therefore I would stay in something I didn't like. He immediately said, "Whoa, I am doing what I'm doing because that's what I like to do. If you like it, fine. If you don't like it, then that's fine too." So the deal we made was that during the summertime, when school was out, that I'd go work at the agency. And if I liked it, I'd stay. And if I didn't like it, I'd go back to teaching. And that would be the end of it. Uh, he never did ask me again, "Do you like it? Don't you like it?" It just, uh, and I kid about that. I said, "I'm still trying to figure out whether I like it or not." But 60, 70 years later, I guess I really liked it. I liked the challenge. I liked the entrepreneurship of it. Uh, I like doing what I'm doing. It did give me the opportunity to use what my father had always told us about doing something for others. So I I've belonged to an awful lot of organizations throughout my lifetime, that each one of them was for a single purpose, but it was something that was for the good of the community or the people involved. I guess you mentioned the Hispanic Cultural Center. And yes, I've been involved in it since 1983 is when the Hispanic Cultural Foundation was formed. Not no center yet. Not there wasn't even mention of a center, but we formed it to be able to uh, uh, teach the culture that we really truly were beginning to lose, and I was very worried about that. I've always thought when you did it very well, what is culture? And in my mind, it's like a four-legged stool. It's about its language, it's about its food, it's about its art, and it's about its history, and everything else fits right into those those four. Somebody asked, and they test me on it and said, "Well, religion was a big part of it." Yeah, I said it's part of history, and it's part of who we are and who we were. But when we were kids, the whole neighborhood spoke Spanish. My father and mother did speak English well, and they did. We knew English, and we could converse in it. But 90% of our conversations were Spanish because that's what the neighborhood kid, all of us spoke Spanish. My grandfather knew very little English. But when we went to school, they would punish us if we spoke Spanish, either on the school grounds or in the classrooms, because they wanted us to immerse and learn English. Later on, it was a good idea that we do learn the language, you know. So, but then when we started having our kids, we thought that's not going to happen to them. So, and it wasn't just us; it was our whole generation. We said we're going to outsmart them. We're going to teach them English first, and then we'll teach them Spanish. So by the time that we taught them Spanish, were beginning to teach them Spanish, they didn't need it anymore. All the kids spoke nothing but English. So my kids did learn Spanish. They do speak it. They speak it. Uh, I think not as fluently as we do, but they get around. The real problem was that they began to feel inadequate speaking Spanish because they're not totally proficient in it. So it's hard for them to teach their children. And basically, when I started thinking about it, I said my grandchildren are going to maybe not speak it and probably not understand it. My uh, great grandchildren are not going to speak it at all, and maybe they don't even know what their culture is because that's part of that four-legged stool. So we began to uh, do it as a foundation. We would raise money and then do a program, and the programs that we were doing at the time where we were teaching the teacher about culture, about Hispanic culture, so that they could then teach the kids, their students. So that's what we began, and little by little we began to feel we need some place where there's an anchor to make this permanent. We started working on the cultural center as an Albuquerque center, and then the state said no, we need to make it a state one. So we went from there to the state, and basically internationally too, because we began to talk to other countries about the culture and so on and so forth. And so what we have now is a cultural center with 4 buildings. There's one left, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But that basically work of teaching. It's a cultural center really for me is a educational institute. It is about educating about this culture.
Edward, what you're really saying is that teaching was your first choice
Yes.
professionally, and you followed that for a long time and learned a lot and contributed in a rural area of New Mexico,
Yeah.
which was really good. It was your initial love. But the center where people gather now and participate in traditional activities is also a place where Latinos learn. They learn, and all those who come and visit learn about the culture and all that it entails, including developing business and balancing that with family. I know that Marvin's interested in asking you some questions as well. So
Yes, I'm happy to be here and really excited and being part of this initial interview with Edward. Uh, as Michaela was saying, he's been very, very much a leader in this community and impacted the state and really has a presence in the nation with the areas he's interested in. So, what I would like to take an opportunity to do here is ask a question related to Chapter 7, which is the chapter that focuses on culture and how we integrate culture in balancing business and family. And that's a key idea, I think, that we can get the expertise that Edward brings. So if we could just get an example of how you were able to manage the differences in culture for folks that you know. As we all know, at least those of us that live in New Mexico, this is a multicultural state, and we all get along very well. So how do we benefit when it comes to businesses, specifically with not only startups, but with growing businesses?
Well, I think one of the big philosophies that I've always had, uh, culture, as you can see, is very important to me, and our culture is important. But uh, people, people share. If I share something with you, you're going to share it back. You're going to share something back to me. I mean, that's human nature. That's just going to happen. So we do. And I've always believed. I'm very proud of my culture, and I'm very proud of what our culture, what we've done, and so on and so. And I share it, and part of it. And you mentioned, Michaela, about sharing. It's so important to share, and they'll share their culture with you. I do it on my own. I do it through the cultural center. I've always done it. The second philosophy, very important to business, is you treat people like people, not objects. And in any business that you're there to help your client, whatever it is that you're doing. Your job is to help that client better him, him or her. So if you take that philosophy and you zero in on helping the client, okay, just like you do zeroing in on public service, just like you do on volunteering and whatever, it is to help make the client more successful, uh, uh, maybe enlarge, whatever it is. That's your job as a business. Whether in our business, really was always a paper business. It didn't have. I didn't give him anything materially. I gave him what I had and what our product was. Uh, in When you do that, when you treat people like people, okay, it it doesn't really uh, uh, you don't really think, oh well, he's not Hispanic, or he's not this, or he's not that. It's about people. So I don't know that it ever, I'm sure it did. I'm sure that some didn't insure with us because of who we were, but I never thoroughly encountered because I was interested in who I was helping, and it came back. They were, if I was interested in them, they were interested in me. And so the relationship uh, was I honored their culture, they honored mine. I did what I did to help them, and in many cases, they were able to help me in a sense. Okay. So I don't know that and I can't think of any example that I was actually discriminated against, if you want that word, in our business. Keep in mind that I came here in 1968 from Santa Fe. Our business here, we didn't have a business. We had one account. There was a fairly large account here in Albuquerque. So we started the business here with hardly any business. So we bought a couple little agencies, and that's all we had. Uh, when I came here is when my brother began to run for Congress and won, and he never came back to the agency. Uh, it was interesting. I didn't know Albuquerque at all, and so I didn't know where I was going. So and I was afraid of freeways because Santa Fe didn't have any freeways.
So that story, Edward, that you were talking about actually happened around 68, right?
That was in '68, and uh, fortunately, the good Lord was with us, and a lot of hard work. We became the largest agency in the state. Uh, uh, so I don't know that I was necessarily affected by it. I was I never let it bother me because I was very proud of doing what I did.
So, Edward, a question I think that's important for us to ask at this time is, did you work in both languages, that is English and Spanish? Do you find that you have or had clients that covered one language or the other? And how did you approach that?
And many times, they knew my name, my last name, and they'd ask me if I knew Spanish, and I did, and I was very comfortable speaking either one of them. It's all about relationships, and it's all about knowing who you are and knowing something about your culture. I'm not just talking about Hispanic now. Knowing your culture, knowing who you are, knowing your history, and being proud of it, and then you move on. It's uh, uh, what a lot of times happens is I don't want to know who I am. I don't want to know my culture. I, uh, and that I think are chips that you carry with you. Uh, and the more chips, I've always maintained, get rid of those chips because the more chips you have on your shoulders, the harder it is to run. And then pretty soon you get more and more chips, and the harder it is to walk in a not in that sense, but in business and life and everything else. So that's what uh, I guess that's what I'm all about, and that's what the center is all about, and that's what my business.
So, Edward, even though you thought you left teaching as a profession, you really didn't, because you've been able to teach people through business that you've developed, the mentees that you have mentored throughout that time, and then the educational aspects of the cultural center, which you've worked so hard to develop.
Well, it's really good to hear when you say that relations and making things relational in the business that you do and in business is very important. I think it's important to point that out. So in terms of cultural differences that may be in people's minds, where really is it a matter of knowing who you are? Since that appears to be important in terms of understanding how to bridge cultural differences. First, you need to understand who you are culturally. I think that's important to point out, and that's what I'm hearing here. I think one question would be, given what Edward has shared with us here today, what can you suggest for those folks that are starting businesses or thinking of starting businesses or growing their businesses? What can they learn from this explanation you've given with regard to cultural differences?
One of the most important parts of obviously the most important part of my life was always my family. Uh, that's all part of. You can have a business, you can work hard, you can put in sometimes long hours if you have to, but don't ever forget your family. And Hispanics in particular, that is one of our uh, cultural traits, I guess. But nonetheless, it's there. Uh, Even though I was very busy trying to build a business and b- even belonging to others to organizations and all, I never forgot when my kids were playing ball or my daughter was cheerleading or going to flamenco dancing or whatever. Uh, you just have to balance it. Make sure that one is that you make time for both. We tried as we did at home. My father was extremely busy, uh, but he always managed, and we always all managed to have dinner together. There were 9 of us plus my mother and my father. There was 11 of us always at the dinner table. And that's where we conversed about different things. My father would get a report from my mother as to whether we were good or bad, uh, and we would report on our schooling, and but it was a family situation. Later on, when we grew, both Manuel and I went into the insurance business. I, I related my story to, but we went into the family business. Uh, we then, when mine grew up, all of mine went into the insurance business. Uh, One of the things that I do caution people on with family businesses, okay, don't force them to go in. I had that experience that I had to make up my mind because I had to be happy. And if I was happy doing my work, doing what I was doing, then I would be happier at home. It wouldn't, I didn't have to go home and gripe about what I, what I was doing. The same thing with my children. I never forced them into saying, "Come on with me. Make sure you come into the business." What I did do is I told them, and I never gave them a job. I gave them an opportunity, and if that was the opportunity that they chose as a lifelong career, great. If it wasn't, go do what you want, what makes you happy.
Knowing people as I do, they don't always agree. And you owned a family business. It was a family owned business. The agency was a family owned business. When people didn't always agree and they were family, how did you manage that? How did you get through the disagreements, or if somebody wasn't completely really aligned with one another within the business? Can you talk a little bit about that? Conflict, disagreements, family relationships, and preserving all of that in the process?
Well, we'd be very honest about it. And it wasn't a matter of, and you're not going to get it. And I raised them to be independent, to be self-thinking, uh, to, to, to be very honest, very cordial. One of my big things, and I do it, and I did it in politics. I never argue. I discuss. And there's a big difference between arguing and discussing. Okay? And so everything we did, we discussed. We did that in our board meeting. It was discussions, and then you come together. Uh, when they were kids, uh, uh, one of the rules was they never, if they had an argument, they settled it before they went to bed. You can have an argument tomorrow again, but you settled this for today. And so it's a culture. I don't know that it's a Hispanic culture, but it's a culture of treating people like people. Even your family, they also have to treat each other like people, not objects. And it is harder if there is a disagreement. We generally try to come together with what's your point of view and what's yours, and let's see if we can get it come together. If we couldn't get it come together, there was always a deciding veto. Me.
Edward, in today's environment and in our quickly changing um, society, given the values that seem to be changing very quickly, we know that the future will continue to change very quickly, and we live in somewhat of a conflicted society. Um, I'm seeking thoughts on what you think about the changes in the future and how people can address culture to make themselves stronger and more effective in running their small businesses.
Let me first say to you, I am troubled with the world today, with the attitudes. It's either my way or the highway. I don't care which way you're thinking. There's uh, Republicans are thinking that the Democrats are, the kids are. It's all jumbled up at this point. I always have faith that the pendulum swings, and at some point it'll swing back to civility, to where it. But again, it's for us. We have a bigger challenges as Hispanics, and that is those chips that I keep talking about. We we have to help in getting in with especially our young people and the immigrants coming in, to get those chips off, get to school, learn a trade, forget about, you know, you, you treat people like people and you demand to be treated like people, uh, and be proud of who you are and move ahead. I think that uh, the migration has always been here. They're just at this point, they're just more people, and the more people coming because there's more people and more opportunities in in this country, and I do see that the big divisions that are there, that you're going to take my job and you're going to do this, you're going to do that. You're not going to take anybody's job if you do what and learn and go to school uh, and go forward, have get ambitious. I I don't see any real problem. The real problem today is undoing all those chips that are there. The more Hispanics go into business, become successful, or not even just going into business, getting an education, going to get a really good job, and being able to help your families maintain a healthy family life. Little by little, those chips are going to go. We were very, very fortunate in that our parents removed the chip from their shoulders by going to school and becoming teachers and becoming okay, and doing the things that they did. They in turn turned it over to us. We in turn turned it over to our children. Uh, our children are in turn turning them to their children, and little by little, it it's going to go over and over. Technology is changing the world. It is a good opportunity, and that's what we try to do with the cultural center, with our culture. It's a good opportunity to begin to change, because they're going to have to change jobs. They're just not going to be. It isn't the same. I guess that's our job at this point, is to help change the dynamics of where we are.
So more specifically, what opportunities do you see for growth, and specifically within that growth in markets and demographically? That is to say, we know that when we look at demographics, and specifically in New Mexico, we have different cultures, different groups of folks that have different values and approach solving problems and in business very differently. So what does that mean? And in terms of living here, and also how do you see society dealing with that and taking advantage of opportunities it presents?
Treating people like people, not just objects, not just oh, you're there, and I don't care what job they're in, I don't care what they're doing. If people can treat each other like people, okay, sharing their experiences, sharing their cultures, one, okay, then I get in, even in the cultural world, and in the if I share my culture with you, you're going to share yours with me.
Edward, great point.
Edward, thank you for sharing your time, experiences, insights, and guidance with us today. Through what you have done in your business, with your family, and in the community, respect, perseverance, and good communication are really key to your success.
So there are 4 takeaways that we want to just recap for our audience. One is that Latino culture is relationship oriented. The second one is that respect is the foundation of all relationships. Third one is that family members and business together should treat one another with the respect that they have treated others in the way that they've been treated. And the fourth is that communication is key. It's key to maintaining all good relationships. So again, Edward, thank you so much for being with us today.